Welcome to the Multifamily Zone, where business meets family. We explore what the entrepreneur life looks like from the family perspective. Now here are your hosts, Julia and Gino Barbaro.
Hey everyone, this is Julia Barbaro, host of the Multifamily Zone podcast. I'm here with the co-founder of Jake and Gino, my husband and co-host, Gino Barbaro.
Hey Joel.
Hey.
This is going to be a good podcast because this guest really doesn't need any introduction, but I'm going to give him an introduction, right? After turning the first home he purchased into a rental when moving cross country, Josh saw the power of cash owning assets. To further get his foot in the door, he joined up with one of the nation's largest real estate investing education companies, where he became passionate about helping others while furthering his own investing career. After realizing the power of multifamily, he joined the Jake and Gino team to grow his portfolio in multifamily while expanding the Jake and Gino community. Currently, Josh owns 328 units.
Wow.
Welcome to the podcast.
Josh is like a prince, right? He has no last name. Is that like
I guess so. I guess so.
One-namers.
You don't need a last
Super
name.
Special.
It's Josh.
Josh Roosen, we are so happy to have you on. This is so exciting.
Awesome. Well, very grateful to be here. Thank you, both of you.
Wow. So this podcast is really crucial to the listeners for a couple of reasons. We've been told that college is really important, and I agree with that. But is college right for everybody? And is it too expensive? What's the true cost? What are the benefits? We're all going to dive into this on this podcast, and we're going to give some stats out there that are really pretty mind-blowing once you hear them. And I really want to give the listeners, and especially the parents and the young adults out there, an informed decision on whether college is the right path for you and what type of college is right. So Josh, starting out, you went to college. What were your feelings of college? What were the benefits for you? What was college life like for you?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And graduating high school, college seemed to naturally be the next step, right? It was in society, the norm there. And really at the age I graduated high school at 17, it was just, I didn't really realize the debt I was taking on, right? You just knew that you'd go to school to get a job, to get a degree, to get a job. So I went through that. And at the time, I thought I knew what I wanted to do, right? So a pre-medical background, biology major, chemistry minor. And I did take out quite a bit of debt. Being very honest, I still to this day owe $114,000 in debt. Now,
how much?
114. I'm 30 years old, so everyone knows that. Now, let's talk about how I got there and why I'm there, and kind of the challenges with that. So I grew up in a very middle-class family, and my parents did the best with what they could, right? I never went without. But at the same time, when you're filling out FAFSA and things like that,
what's FAFSA?
Federal student aid, something. It's the whatever the government is for student aid. And with that, I didn't qualify. My parents weren't in a position where I was lower class to be able to get grants or even subsidized tuition. Instead, I had to go through private loans. But on the same token, they weren't wealthy enough to actually pay for college, right? And with that, getting private loans, what's happening is I'm out there accruing interest as I'm going to college, and I'm taking out loans for everything, right? My cost of living, I'm taking out loans for my books, my tuition, my food, my housing, everything like that. And, being upfront, it did take me 5.5 years to graduate. I definitely had some learning from the school of hard knocks and learning what I didn't want. But at the same time, even after I graduated, my mindset was, well, hold on, I'm going to try to build this business. Let me defer payments for as long as I can. There was a point where I could, defer them. But the thing is, you're still accruing interest. So I actually at one point even owed more than I took out, which was crazy, way more.
I need to share these stats. 33.3% of students who go to a public education graduate in 4 years. 33.3% of the people. 57.6% take 6 years. So there's a lot of people not graduating. In private, 52.8% take 4 years. Only half of the people who go graduate in 4 years. Josh, you fell in. It was 5 years. 6-year average is 65.4. So what would you have done differently when you went? Looking back now, it's easy to say back now, but looking back now, would you have still gone to college? Was it the right decision for you? What would you have done differently?
Yeah. So one thing I wish I would have known is I wish I would have really realized the debt I was taking on and the impact that would have later in my life. Right. And I don't regret college, but being honest, I wouldn't have went back. Right. So a lot of what I got out there was a time to be on my own and kind of realize my own habits. And then also early on in college, I used to get a lot of my happiness from, other people's praises, right? And then I kind of realized that led me down to a trap of fraternities and things like that, which weren't really positive in my life. And once I realized through the School of Hard Knocks that internal fulfillment is what really makes me happy, doing what I want instead of seeking external praise, that's something I'm very grateful for in college. And it's almost a safe space that protects you from the real world. But at the same time, the cost of the level of debt that I'm in is really high too. And another thing about college debt, I could claim bankruptcy and not even get rid of that. I could go max out my credit cards, buy big houses, buy a super nice car, and I claim bankruptcy. All that other debt's gone. Your college debt is with you forever. It's like impossible to get rid of.
So Josh, you didn't mention your story or your life of going into medical school and wanting to do medical school and then dropping out and changing. I think one of the overlying principles that I think of when you're a young adult, you may not know what you want. So you're going towards a degree, spending all those years, and then you say to yourself, I don't want to go there. I've done all this debt. What do I do now? Can you speak about that also?
Yeah, so I think you bring up a really good point, right? At the age of 17, I wasn't aware of what I was doing. And really, I although I had shadowed doctors and things like that, I didn't really know what I was getting into in this long road ahead of me. And in fact, it wasn't even until I really worked for an orthopedic surgeon that he actually scared me out of that career and painted this picture of me graduating and being $500,000 in debt and 30 years old and being able to try to climb out of that hole, which actually scared me out of going that way. But at the same time, there are some professions where it is worth it. And if you're intentional about minimizing your debt and getting out of there as fast as possible, and even hustling and working nights, weekends, things like that, it can be worthwhile. But if you're going there to get a beer brewing degree or a history degree, nothing against it. But again, is the cost or the investment of college worth the return you're going to get?
Josh, you had mentioned that you were 17. And I think that's important because as parents, we have to remember that our kids are still teenagers making these really big decisions. And so it's really important that we have a really good conversation with them and say, okay, what is it that you want? Do you want to go to college? Are you prepared for it? Are you responsible enough? Do you have a financial responsibility? Did we, the parents, teach them money? Did we teach them how to, not spend everything on our credit card and not even look at the bill? That's really important. Is the intention of your child to just party? That's a question that we can ask them. And I think we forget that sometimes, that all these things can be resolved if we just have a conversation with them. Our kids actually wanted to stay home, which I'm thrilled with, but that was an opportunity for me to say, okay, I need to give them their space, let them be responsible, let them be little adults, young adults in the home, not giving them chore after chore when they get home. I have to give them space. And that's really important for us as parents to say, let's talk to our teen and really get an idea. So did your parents actually have a conversation with you beforehand?
So this is really important. They absolutely did not. I wasn't financially literate. It's not taught in schools or even in college. And I didn't really have respect for money. And to even add to that story and kind of show you where I was at with money, when I went to college, I had a credit card for emergencies and it had a $1,200 limit. And my first month in college, I maxed that thing out. So my parents get a bill of $1,200. And so I get this phone call of, hey, Josh, you got two options here. One, you can figure out how to pay it. Or two, you can give us the credit card back and we'll take care of it. Yeah, but so the credit card went back to them. $1,200 was a lot of money. It still is a decent amount at the time, but I just didn't know. I didn't value and respect money, nor did I have the financial literacy that I have now.
So Josh, what I've done with my children, and I'm a proponent, I think education is important. I think college is important, but I'm not going to pay $60,000 or $70,000 a year to have my children go to a college, especially a 4-year degree. I would say if you can't afford it, have your kids go to community college. There's also other avenues down in Florida. You can do dual enrollment. You can be going to college while you're in high school and possibly get an associate's degree before you even go. So there's cost-saving measures. Go out there and have your children see if they can get scholarships, but also be open to letting them go and letting them decide their own path. And for us, I'm not going to burden them. I'm able to pay for their education. They stayed home. They're working for me in different ventures, different avenues. They're very responsible, and they will graduate after 4 years. So I have the situation that they're going to finish after 4 years. They're going to have no debt. They're going to enter the world, but they're responsible, and I think they've earned it. And we've had that conversation.
Well, it's
with
a
them.
conversation, and that's something to remember is that conversation needs to start early on in their life, not, when it's time to sign up for college.
But let's say it's time to sign up for college and you haven't had that.
Okay.
What's the next
so
step?
then have it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the finances. Are you ready to take on this debt? Because it's important to show them what the bills will be, right, Josh, later on, what that could look like for you.
Yeah, my minimum payment is $1,200 a month. That's a very nice car sitting in the driveway, and that's the minimum payment. And then when I get the bill or my tax reports each year, you realize you're paying so much in interest, and you're like, holy crap. So it's definitely something that those decisions, they stick with you for the rest of your life, right? And that's so it's a very big decision that most people just think it's the norm and don't have that thought going into it, like you said.
Sure. And it's also it's important for us as parents to remember that they are becoming adults. And at 18, they're technically an adult. So how are we treating them? Because if they're going to be staying home and we're, like I said before, treating them, or even when they come home on break and we're treating them still like our teenagers were before, it could be an issue. But another thing too to talk about is there's other alternatives than just college. You could work. There's trade schools, there's military, there's other things to do besides. And I think that's really important, maybe to have that conversation of there's other alternatives.
Josh, from your experience, when you start having kids and your kids get to be college age, what would you say to them? Because it's important, because it's easy for me to say what I would say to my kids. You've been through that experience. I went to college. I didn't have any student debt. I graduated. But what would you say to your children?
Yeah. So one thing I want to make sure that I definitely educate my kids on is they realize the power of having assets that work for them in entrepreneurship, right? So creating jobs rather than being someone who has a job. So a lot of times what I firmly believe is college, you're sent there to be an employee, right? And then from there, it's like, there's nothing wrong with that. And you need employees in a business. However, I think the power of having assets and building a business is much more powerful, so that you need that basic financial education. So that way, let's say you get a strong income and go to college, it's what you do with it, right? And then you can start collecting those assets to eventually build wealth. So I would just make sure that no matter what, they have that basic financial literacy, and they understand what the impact of this is going to be later on in their life, right? And they're committed to what they're looking to pursue.
So we both really value education. We've actually created and we're growing an educational platform, the Jake and Gino platform. What the benefits, or what did you like about college, and what have we been able to implement in the Jake and Gino platform that really makes it feel as if it's a college education?
Yeah. So one of the things I definitely like, right? When I went to college, I had a lot of pride. I had Central Michigan University t-shirts. I would have hats, gym shorts, things like that. And I was proud to be there, right? Because I got accepted to college, or something you got to apply to, right? So what we did here is created a culture or a community of like-minded individuals that are pursuing more out of life, but just through a different vehicle, right? Of multifamily real estate education. And in fact, I firmly believe there is a lack of financial education. And I want to dive a little bit deeper into that, right? I think the average person is taught to go to school, to get a job, to save for retirement. And back when, maybe my parents or their grandparents' generation, that there were things called pensions, right? And that could have worked, where you're going to get income for the rest of your life. Now the challenge has become that saving is really hard, because money is not a really good store of wealth. In fact, inflation erodes money very quickly. And the new vehicle is a 401k. So it's really hard to get a lot of money in there to retire. In fact, let's say you have $3-4 million in there, and that's pre-tax money. You got to hope you don't outlive that nest egg, where if you have assets spitting off cash every month, there's a lot more benefits there. So I think that what we're doing here is something that's needed in society. And it's our duty and obligation to help empower others before it's too late, to learn these skill sets to change not only the outcome of their life, but their kids and their kids' kids. And that's what I'm passionate about. It's not like we're at Coca-Cola and we're selling sugar water, right? This is literally a product that has the outcome or the ability to change the outcome of someone's life. That's impressive to me.
I love that. Let me add a few more things that I think that we've really created at Jake and Gino. I think that personal development is huge. We're not really taught personal development in college, Josh, correct? I've got my kids going to life coaching school, both of them, the 17-year-old and the 20-year-old. And I think that's really important, personal development. I think the culture that you'd mentioned, we've created a tribe of like-minded individuals that have proximity, that are able to access and hold each other accountable. I think the accountability piece in college, when you go to school, you have a teacher there, and it's the same thing with the Jake and Gino community. You have accountability coaches, you have deal expert coaches, we have Monday lessons. We also love the fact that we have live events. We think you need to get into a space with people and network and be able to meet people and sit in a really a classroom environment where we have, whether it's a money mixer going on a bus tour, or we're having a boot camp, a buy right, manage right, or a finance right boot camp, where we're sitting in a classroom and for a weekend and taking notes. Those are really important elements of college that we've been able to actually transform and implement into the Jake and Gino platform. You know, there are other options. What else have you found that really works for us?
Yeah. So one thing I really like, comparing college to the Jake and Gino platform, we have one-on-one mentorship. And in fact, two mentors, like you said, a deal expert and accountability coach. Thinking back to college, there were some of my classes that was a large auditorium, and I would in fact miss most of the lectures, show up at the test, and I'd still do okay. However, I didn't have that accountability piece. I had no one checking in on me one-on-one and working with me specific to my situation. In fact, it just felt like, I went to school where there was 30,000 people, and it was a small Division I school. I was a number there and a statistic, and it's easy to not hold ourselves accountable. And in fact, that's what took me 5.5 years, that I had to learn that I had to be a self-starter, which I'm not saying you don't have to be a self-starter to do this, but one-on-one coaching definitely helps hold you accountable even more to that.
I have to say, we went back and forth early on before Gabriella was in college, and we weren't sure, because we don't want to be caught in the trap of college only. You have to go to college, but at the same time, it taught her a lot. It taught her responsibility. It taught her, just basic things that she didn't get beforehand. And I think there are so many benefits. But like I said, it's the conversation you have with the children beforehand. And I call them children because they are, before they go to college, they are young, and it's important, and it's okay, and we want to be helpful with them. We want to teach them and everything, but we can't just, avoid that and then send them off to college and assume that they're going to be fine, because it's our responsibility to guide them. They will make mistakes. Of course, we're going to be here, but that responsibility is really, really important.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point there, right? And one thing is that I see some parents might do is projecting that they think college is the next step and wanting that more than their kids want it for them. And that's setting someone up for failure, right? Because if they go there and they're truly not prepared and ready for it, and they don't want it more than you want it for them, that they may not graduate, right? They're going to be in that statistic, or that 40% that doesn't make it out. And then even worse, they shackled all this debt with no degree, and nothing to show for it. So that's a tough thing to walk away with.
Yeah.
Josh.
Yeah, hold on. It's important to ask your child, you ask that teen, what is it that you want? Tell me what you want to do. And then it's really important to listen, because I've heard so many times, my dad wanted me to go here. This is where he went. Or, my mom, her whole dream was that, she never got to go to college, so I'm going to go for her. I've heard that a lot. And it makes me really sad, because you're not living your parents' life. You're on your own. Your future is important. Sorry.
She told me to hold on, so I'm still holding on over here. So I think it's really is important. That needs to be repeated. We can't live our lives through our children. You're sending your child to college, they become a lawyer. I met a lot of lawyers through the Jake and Gino platform. They're like, I just went to law school because my parents wanted me to go. That's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt or tuition. And then when you come out, you're doing something that you truly despise. It's a great education. Don't get me wrong. You can do anything from that, but why waste all those years? And why not sit back and reflect on what you want to do, what your goals are ultimately?
It's so important. And it's important for us to hear what the people say, hear what our children or whoever you're talking to, or nieces, nephews out there, listen to what they're saying to you, because it's really important that you don't let them know what they should be doing. It's very, very tempting.
Yeah, I think one thing I would have done differently is I wish, so in high school, I definitely shadowed some physicians and things like that, but I wish I would have got more on the job training, meaning
Mhm.
seeing what a day in the life is like and really asking them, are you happy with what you do?
Mhm.
What would you do differently? And asking the questions that I didn't even think of to ask. A lot of times what I just saw is you elevate them, right? They're a doctor, so they were someone of
Yeah.
status and they did well, right? They did
Mhm.
more than what my family did. And that's what I wanted in life. But what I didn't know is all of the debt and the rising increase in college, which actually we should really dive into that. Some really staggering statistics on this is if you look since August of 2003 to August of 2013, right? So a 10-year window, the growth of college tuition has gone up 79%. Now, relative to how much medical care has gone up, that's double. And then if you compare that to the overall consumer price index, college has gone up 3 times. So it's not like, I've heard stories of people back in the day that were able to work a summer and then use that to pay for their college for the year. There was no way, and I worked in college, that I could have even done that. In fact, I was just hoping to get a little bit of spending money extra and above through working and not even able to touch the cost of college.
Hmm. I love that. Let's take a quick time out to hear from our sponsors.
Is your money working as hard as you are? At RAM Partners, we partner with hardworking investors who are seeking true passive income through multifamily real estate. Partnering with RAND means transparent communication with our webinars, monthly statements, and newsletters. For more information, visit randpartners.com to register for our investor portal and to set up a call with our team.
So, Josh, let's try to create a little framework or next steps for the average young adult who's looking to go to college. What should they think of? I love the idea that you said mentorship. Jake and Gino community, we have mentorships out there. Maybe go out and work in a field, work in a hospital for a semester before you go to college.
Mhm.
Work in a restaurant if you want to do hotel management. Maybe you work in a restaurant, work the front of the house. If you want to get into construction management, maybe go on a construction site for 6 months, get paid, earn while you learn. And then if it's right for you, go to
Mhm.
college. What would you
But
say?
also, I have to add something is that to ask people, just like Josh said, ask the people around you in that field. What do you think of it? Tell me, was this what you thought it would be like? Josh, you had mentioned that. I think that's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. So I agree with both of them, right? You want to get opinions of people who have been doing it for a couple of years and a long time, right? Because it's something that they may have changed or they'll give you opinions and ask multiple people. And then that on the job training as well. So
Mhm.
sometimes the idea of what a position is and then what it actually is a different reality. So if you can either pay to play, seek to serve, or find a way to get experience around people that are doing what you want, you get more facts and figures to come to an educated conclusion to be more sure that this is what you want. So if you're a young kid looking to go to college, definitely do that. Now if you're a parent listening to this, same thing, right? It's having that conversation. Hey, what interests you? What would you want to do? And then getting them exposure to people that are doing it and
Mhm.
making sure that's the right career path. Because the alternative and the unfortunate reality is, let's say you send them away and you want them to be a lawyer. They go to undergrad, then they go to law school, and they're 7, 8 years in. They have all this debt. It's an ounce of prevention there, and figuring it out is well worth it's worth a pound of cure, right? Having all that debt and the time wasted too.
Mhm.
So I'm just still amazed at that $1,200 a month payment because that's really a mortgage for a lot of
Yeah.
people. That's really a mortgage within a mortgage. And you're able to say to yourself, wow, I can't buy a home right now because I've got this huge student debt.
Mhm.
So I think everyone out there, part of the framework is let's weigh the pros and the cons. There's a lot of pros of going to college, but there's also a lot of cons or negatives, and weigh them and, take a look at several different factors. The cost is really important. Should you live at college? Maybe, maybe not. What does it cost? Is in-state tuition cheaper, a better option for you? Or community college is a better option for you? So there's so many different options to be looking at. And ultimately, is college the right vehicle for you? Can you join a platform like Jake and Gino and get the same amount of experience about knowledge than going out and spending $150,000, $200,000 on a 4-year degree?
Well, even with college, I wasn't taught how to balance a checkbook, right? How to have
Mhm.
assets. That basic financial education isn't even there. So that's
Hmm.
something we aim to fill a void here.
Mhm.
And you brought up a good point about, that the $1,200 a month payment I have to make. The first house I bought was just over $100,000. And the payment on that with escrow was just over $700. So that's literally my college payment is still $500 more than the first house I had.
Hmm.
That's a crazy thought.
So that's the amazing part between the people who are wealthy and the people who are poor. The poor people have the liabilities and the rich people have the assets. Your house that you bought is paying you. Your student debt, you're paying it. Although, I don't want to make it seem as if student debt is all liability, because it's really an investment in your education, or your investment in yourself. But where is the ROI, that return on investment? Is it there as opposed to the $100,000 house? That's what we're trying to discuss on this podcast.
Yeah, love that, right? You definitely look at, you never look at cost, you look at return on investment, right? I would invest $1 million to make 2 all day. $1 million is a very large number, but it's not the number we're looking at, it's the return on investment.
Yeah. A lot of young people do feel that they need to go to college to be successful. And a lot of the parents put that pressure on them because, a lot of them go because to please the parents, like we've said, and that's so important to just, what is success? There are so many other options in college, and I'm not against college at all. We have 2 in college. So I just want to put that out there, but there's so many ways around it. We could, like Gino said, just look at your area, see if there's a local college, see if there's even a college a half hour away, an hour away. There's so many options nowadays, even online learning. There's so many things that we could look into and see what the kids is interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you bring up a good point there, right? So if one way to look at it is if I would have started business building and been in real estate at the same age I entered college, right? So I was 17 when I graduated high school. I have no idea where I'd be right now, 13 years later, and a heck of a lot further. I've only been in real estate 4.5 years, but at the same time, there was so much time and energy and capital invested into that career path in college to only pivot, where it's like if at time being on my side would have made me so much further in the career I'm in now if I would have only known that. And one thing I've realized as you get older too, it makes it harder to make risk, right? Let's say I had a family and I had a big house and I had multiple cars. For me to go out and build this business, I mean, one, I want to be able to spend the time with my future family. And then 2, I never want to put my family into financial harm. So the younger you can do that and realize that you can sacrifice to create wealth and make things happen. If you pay the price now, you can pay any price later. And that's just not a standard path. And I wish it was explored more.
It's easy as an adult to say, oh, I should have done this. But what you chose at the time brought you to where you are. All that life experience that you wouldn't have had you not chosen it. So I just want to put that out there that we do make mistakes, and I think they're good for us because we learn so much from them. So,
Josh, where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, all right, for everybody, I'm 30 years old. I'll be 31 June 12th. So this in like 13 days, probably this will air by then. I definitely want to have a family, right? And my goal is to be the kindergarten room dad, right? I want to be able to coach Little League for my kids. And I want assets that produce capital for me independent of my time. So I can travel the world with my family and really do what I love most with those that I care about most. And then I'm also working from a place of care. I don't ever see myself stopping working, but come from a place of confidence. It's not that I need the money because I'm very passionate about what I do, and which I am now. But just that point of, look, the money is not why I'm here. It's the impact on the world and other people and creating something that's going to outlive me in this world. And that's what most excites me.
So where do you continue to educate yourself? Where would you tell the listeners, hey, these are some great options, some great places that I've seen to further my education, whether it's in sales, whether it's in real estate?
Yeah. So let's start very basic, right? If I were just starting off and I wanted financial education and to really realize the options that are out there in the world, 2 books that I would highly recommend. One is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Obviously, that's the classic book that everyone starts with. Another one, and you actually recommended this one to me, is The Millionaire Fastlane by MJ DeMarco. Both really good books. And this way you can get an educated opinion of the different routes and ways you can go out there. And then from there, I would really get familiar with what asset class or vehicle you want to use to create wealth, right? We believe multifamily real estate is one of the best to create generational wealth, but there's lots of ways to do it. You can create Shopify stores. You can, create a lemonade stand, right? Whatever you want. And then I would find someone who's doing it at the highest level that like, and trust, and they've been able to produce results with other people. And I would either pay to play or seek to serve, find guidance from them. That we don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? You have a formula, you can compress time and all that learning curve and trial and error they went through, you you can avoid it, right? I call it OPE, other people's everything, right? Their time, their energy, their mistakes. In fact, what I view that as, I'm sure a lot of you have seen the movie The Matrix, right? When Neo fights Morpheus, he plugs into that thing in the back of his head and he learns karate. It's like, that's what you're able to do when you find a mentor like that, is learn all that information and avoid that learning curve and really compress down time, right? It's not that you couldn't be successful on your own, but if you can get there in 3 years instead of 6, what are 3 years of your life worth? And that would be my formula to create success to anyone out there.
I love that, Josh. From all of our experience that me and you have had, from the real estate, from the personal development, we've created the Wheelbarrow Profits Youth Academy. So down below in the show notes, if you want to find out more about the Youth Academy, we've created this for young adults, for teens, and even for parents who want to teach their children about money, about investing, about skills to learn, about really great habits to formulate, taxes, insurance, all of these different things that we're not taught in college. Josh and I have created the Youth Academy for that specific purpose. And a lot of the members in the Jake and Gino community are utilizing this to teach their children, because it's important. Yeah. It's part of their background. And, you can dive into all the different skills that we're teaching them. It's really important that we're teaching our children these skills.
Yeah, that is what they do not learn in high school. And it's pretty sad, because I don't know why. I don't know why that was never taught. It doesn't make sense to me at all, but it is so crucial for them to learn before college, in my opinion.
So Josh, any parting words, any final words?
Education is the way to go, right? Reach out. More than happy to connect with anyone. Josh at jakeandgino.com. And, actually one thing really you brought up, the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago, but the second best time is. So guys, if you're thinking about starting a business or doing something different, now is the time to do it. And a lot of what I got, my behaviors were learned from my parents and my family. So if you can lead by example and by action, right? You're not telling them one thing and doing another. That's the absolute best way to do it. And so that's my advice to the listeners.
Yeah. Josh, I have to say that your parents are amazing. We know them very well. They did a great job raising you. And we're thankful for you. We really are. I have to put that in there.
You have to put that in there.
I love them. I love your parents.
Yes. Well, Josh comes to the house, so he's like my child. So whenever he comes down, the food bill gets a little bit bigger, but that's okay. So, we want to thank you for sharing your experience out here, because sometimes it's difficult to talk about mistakes that we've made, where we've led to, and ultimately it's all about growth, and it's all about contribution and giving back and willing to learn and having that growth mindset. You can go to college and have a fixed mindset. You ultimately need to continue to have that growth mindset where you're willing to commit, willing to work hard and learn and to grow.
Perfect.
She said perfect.
Ending. That was you really tied it up good.
I think we got to sign off over there, Josh. So until next time, we just want to thank all the listeners out there for spending part of their day with the Jake and Gino family here. And once again, Josh, your email, if anyone wants to reach out to you.
Yep. Josh at jakeandgino.com. Feel free to reach out.
Thanks, everybody. Awesome. Josh, have a great day.
Josh.
See you guys.